Today, the most asked question that any photographer ever hears from anybody: what camera should I buy? Oh my goodness. So I got a question the other day. I want to read it to you guys, show it to you. I'm a beginner and I'm looking at buying a Canon 5D Mark III as my first DSLR. I want to take landscape pictures and print them. Is this a good camera to start? I only have a budget of $1,800 and in time I will buy a lens. Okay, first few things. The 5D Mark III is a professional wedding camera. It will do landscape pictures. The thing about it, if you're new and you don't even understand the exposure triangle, you really don't need a professional camera to get started because you're going to be on automatic the whole time. And if you buy 5D Mark III, or let's say you go and you buy a Canon R6 with a 24-70 lens, that's $6,000. You're going to be shooting on auto. You know what else does beautiful work on auto will save you $6,000? Your iPhone. Because if you go spend $6,000 on this camera and you don't know how to use the camera, you're just going to be shooting in program automatic camera seats, which is exactly what your iPhone does. So do you need it? When you were 16 and you got your driver's license, did you go buy a Lamborghini Diablo? When you got your first job at McDonald's after your first day, did you run to Malibu Beach and buy a beachfront home? Doubt it. But let's say you do want to get into photography. I'm not discouraging getting into photography, but some people think, oh, I want to be a photographer. In 2 weeks I can know everything I need to know. I've been doing this almost 40 years. I still learn stuff every week. I learn something new. There's always new advancements in cameras, new technologies. There's always something new to learn, a new light, a new flash, a new lighting setup, a new way to do this. Always something new. There's always something to learn. So if you're buying a camera to start with, I would really recommend spending the money on the lenses. You can buy a APS-C crop sensor camera like the Canon 60D or the Canon 70D. They're crop sensors, but you're still, being new, you're not even going to know how to push these to their maximum, much less a new high-end camera like the Canon R6 or even a 5D Mark III. And that's the 5D Mark III. I'm exaggerating a little bit there with the R6, but the 5D Mark III is not a bad investment. You're getting it used, so all the, it's going to hold its value, but the camera is so advanced for a beginner, you're not going to be able to take advantage of what makes it look. First, you need to know your exposure triangle. Then you got to know a million other things, like how do you get the blurry back? How do you shoot high-speed sync? Well, to shoot high-speed sync, you need a flash. Do you know how to use a flash? You're going to have to learn how to use a flash. Outside, using a flash is different than inside using a flash. Lenses should be your most important thing. Don't buy a camera now and say I'm going to buy a lens later. A lens is the most important part. Give me a APS-C Canon that's 20 years old, shoots 8 megapixels, and put a L series lens on it, and it will blow somebody out of the water that doesn't know what they do. They could have a Canon R3 with the latest and greatest everything, and they're not going to be able to compete with somebody that understands how to get a picture correct. When you buy a camera, the reason that manufacturers upgrade and the photographers upgrade their camera, let's say you had which one is this? A 70D. Let's say you got a 70D. It's a great camera. Once you push it to the max and you've gotten the full abilities out of this camera, Canon puts out a new camera with new technology. You take it and then you advance yourself along with the camera and keep pushing the technology so that you can push the camera to its maximum so that you can get the full benefits of the camera. If you just go buy a high-end camera, that doesn't mean you're going to get good pictures. In fact, if you take a new camera in your first 48 hours, you probably won't even get a picture in focus. So the understanding of the camera is so much more important than the camera itself. Any camera that you can make adjustments on, you could even get a Panasonic Lumix G100. And this is a little micro 4/3, but you can change the lenses on it. You can do everything in manual settings. So you can get great pictures with this if you know how to take pictures. But if you don't know how to take pictures, you can have a full frame Canon R3 and R5 and R6, don't matter. If you don't know how to use it, how to make those settings work for what you want, then it doesn't matter. Learn your exposure triangle, learn your f-stops, your shutter speed, your ISO, what do they do? Each one of those settings represent part of the exposure triangle. You can't just change one without changing another. It all works together. So I'm going to reveal to you what camera you need to buy when you're beginning. But first, let me just say, if you really want to get into photography, that's great, but you've got to be ready to learn. Do you like math? You got to know math. You're doing math all the time. It's really just one big math game. Everything, all your measurements, everything is lighting, and it's all based on math. So if you're okay with that and you want to learn, because I have had so many people that have came to me for training to be a photographer, 90% of them do it for 6 months or less. Because everybody thinks photography, oh, that's easy, you just take a picture, but it's not like that at all. When you see a subject, you've got to decide, what do I want to do with this subject? If I'm shooting a model, what do I want in the picture? Do I want a headshot of her? Well, that's one lens, one type of lighting. If I want full length, that's another lens, another type of lighting. Are we outside or are we inside? Am I shooting family pictures? Or are you going to shoot headshots of your cat? It's all different. Everything you want to do. If you want to shoot landscape, that's a whole nother ballpark. If you want to shoot at night and low light, that's a whole nother ball game. That's all. Everything is different. Everything depends. So the first thing, if you want to do photography, is decide what kind of photography you want to do. If you want to do weddings, that's a whole separate line. If you want to do landscape, a whole different line of lenses, cameras. In fact, landscapers, a lot of them like the crop sensors, even though full frame is the hip thing because it is the best quality, but there are advantages to APS-C, the crop sensor. If you're shooting wildlife and you have a 400mm lens and you put on a crop sensor, it's going to be over 600mm. So there's an advantage from the crop sensor right there from doing wildlife. But if you're doing weddings and you want the nice blurry background behind your bride and groom, then you're going to want a full frame camera that goes down to 1.8 or 2.8. I know a lot of what I'm saying probably don't make sense if you're a beginner, but this is what I'm talking about. If it don't make sense, I would suggest at first learning the art of photography. Not just buying a big expensive camera, because that's not going to do anything any better than your iPhone's going to get you if you don't know how to set the settings. But if you really want to get into photography and you want to learn, let's do it. We will help you do it. But it's a long road. It's not something you can just learn in 2 weeks or even 2 years. It's a fun job. I love my job. I've been doing it since I was 15 years old. I started in 1983 taking pictures. That's a long time ago. You can do the math on that one. I won't do the math on that one. But there's nothing wrong. He wanted to know about buying a 5D Mark III. That's fine. That's a good camera, and you're probably getting a pretty good deal on it. Get them used. Get them at KEH or MPB. You'll be fine. They have 6-month warranties. They have good cameras. They're good reputable places to buy from. And the 5D Mark III, brand new, I forget, was probably, don't quote me, $3,500 brand new, maybe $3,000. I don't remember exactly. That's with no lens. That's just for the body. But you can probably get one now for, I'm guessing, maybe $700, $600 for the 5D Mark III. It might be a little more. The 5D Mark IV, I think, is still hovering around $1,500. So it might be hovering around $1,000 or $1,100. So I would rather see you put your money in lenses. If you buy a Canon 24-70 f2.8 L series with the red line around the end of it, those don't have one in front of me, sorry. Those are the professional lenses, and they're going to last you longer, and they're going to hold their value. They're not going to really drop much in value. You can buy a brand new L series Canon lens and sell it in 6 years for 85% of what you paid for it brand new. The camera bodies aren't going to do that. They're going to plummet. I mean, even these 60Ds, I've even got a 30D we bought probably 20 years ago or whenever it came out. It was probably $1,200 brand new. You can get them used now for 75 bucks at KEH. And it's still a fine camera to shoot. But if you want to advance, you need to learn the shutter triangle. That's the first thing you need to learn. And then you need to decide what avenue of photography you want to do. Now, if you just want to do it for fun, shooting pictures of the family, have at it. You can do that. But I wouldn't say you would need to buy a high-end camera to do that. I would suggest getting a $100 used camera like a Canon 40D, 50D, somewhere in there, putting a Godox flash on top, putting a decent lens on it. You could get all that for $600-700 and shoot some good pictures. You could even set it on manual and just fire away at that if you just want to shoot pictures of the family. But if you want to get into it making money, you're going to have to invest in lenses. You're going to have to invest in equipment, and most of all, your time. There's a lot of learning in photography because you've got all these rules, and then when you get to the end, there's always an exception, and then you have to do something different and go down another road of rules that change at the very end with an exception. So like if you're outside and you're shooting and it's bright and sunny, you've got to be able to take your camera to high-speed sync. Well, you want your camera off your flash, so now you've got to have a transmitter to send to your flash so that you can shoot in high-speed sync. You have to have a flash that goes to high-speed sync. You have to have a transmitter that works with that flash. You have to be able to overpower the sun. So if you're shooting outside in the sun, you want your flash right up against somebody, like for the headshots, put your flash right up against them. You can use an ND filter too. It stands for neutral density. It's a filter that darkens up the scene. If you don't want to do high-speed sync with a flash, you can use that. But I do like the flash because you want a little flash in there to take the dark sockets, the shadows out of the eyeballs. You'll see a lot of people shooting pictures. Even a lot of quote-unquote professional photographers will shoot pictures. And if you look at the eyeballs and you see shadows, question that photographer, okay? Because photography is about light, and it's about controlling the light. You've got to be able to get the shadows out of the eyeballs. That's what makes our pictures sell versus what the amateur is going to get. You've got to know how to get the shadows out of the eyeballs, and that's done with a high-speed sync or an ND filter or kind of a mixture of both. Now, if you're inside a church shooting candlelight wedding, you've got to have a camera and a lens that will go down a fast lens, which means you've got a low aperture like 1.8, 2.8, so that you can get those dark shots. And then you will need sort of the 5D Mark III, Mark IV, Canon R6. Those cameras will come into play because you'll be able to shoot at low light at a really high ISO and not get the grain that you get with the older cameras. So let's say you go and buy a Canon 70D. You can probably get one for $500. And then you can add a pretty decent lens to start with. This one right here is a 17-85. It's not an L series lens, but it's not a kit lens either. It's a little better. It's closer to a kit lens than it is an L series though, but it's a decent lens, 1785, had it for a long time. You can get some good pictures of that, but again, you're gonna have to learn how to make the camera work for you on what you want it to do. You can't just flip on a camera and suddenly you're getting these beautiful pictures. So I know I'm driving that point over and over, but that is the point of the question. You ask somebody, when somebody asks you, what kind of camera do I buy? Well, what do you want to do with it? What do you want to shoot? How much time and energy do you want to put into learning? All this comes into play. But if you just want to go buy an expensive camera and take some good pictures, I would suggest this. This is a Canon lens cap. I would buy that. You can get them for $7, because after 2 days when you're shooting pictures with that new fancy camera and nothing's in focus and you're frustrated, you're going to need this lens cap to put on the end of your camera so you can put it in your closet, so when you die 25 years later your kids can find it and go, what is this thing? Oh, it's a camera, but it don't shoot holograms, so get rid of it. It's no good. Buy a lens cap if you just want to shoot in the auto with a $6,000 camera. But if you want to learn, I would suggest starting with like a Canon 70D. If you're just dying to jump into the 5D Mark III, that's fine. You can. It's still the same f-stop, shutter speed, ISO, all that is the same no matter what brand, no matter what f-stop, ISO, shutter speed, all that is always going to be the same no matter what brand of camera, what type of camera, crop sensor, full frame, micro four thirds. All that is going to remain the same. So you need to learn the exposure triangle, figure out what avenue of photography you want to do, and put your time into it, because it takes practice, practice, and practice to do it. I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I've been doing it, like I said, for a long, long time, and you can do well at it. But it has taken many, many, many hours, many months and years and decades to learn everything that some of us guys have learned that have been shooting for this long. And it's always funny because I don't know what it is about being a photographer that everybody thinks they can learn it in 2 weeks. I never go to my doctor and think, you know, if I had 2 extra weeks on my hand, I would become an MD. But you know, I don't know what it is. I guess it's the fact that we hold the camera, we push the button, and then 2 weeks later you're seeing some beautiful pictures. I guess it looks simple. I don't know. And it's not complicated. It's like anything. Once you know how to do it, it's not hard. But that's with anything. It'd be like a heart surgeon. Probably not hard for a heart surgeon to do heart surgery, but that's because he knows how to do it. So anyway, if you guys are interested in learning, getting further into photography, send me an email down at the bottom. Tell me what kind of photography you want to get into. Tell me where you're at in the learning stage, and I will help you find a camera. I'll even help you learn how to shoot. I can give you my text, my email. You can send me pictures as you go, questions. I'll help you out. I'm not going to charge you. I had people that taught me when I was young, so I'll be glad to return the favor. So, I mean, photography is a wonderful thing. I'm not, some of this was hyperbole. I was just messing with you guys, you know, people wanting to buy the brand new highest end camera that don't even know how to turn one on. That's always been the case, but it's just kind of funny. So, but if you for real want to get into photography though, I will be more than happy to help you out and help you learn. I've taught a lot of photographers over the years. Some of them are still doing it. Some of them haven't seen a camera in 30 years. But it's kind of one of those things, if you've got the right, you can learn photography. Anybody can learn the lighting and the math that goes into it. But there's just something about the right kind of photographer. There's just got to be something a little bit off up here to get the shots that you want. So if you're a little bit off, you'll be a perfect photographer. So listen up, contact me. Let me know what you want to shoot, where you're at in your learning curve, and I will help you every step of the way. If we're helping you guys out, y'all have a good day, and please hit subscribe.